All right, I think I have four things today. One, quick blood pressure, heart rate update. 88 was my heart rate this morning, which is crazy low for me. It's, it's like mind-blowingly low for me. I've gotten 88 one time in the last over 2 years now, one time before, and it was not that long ago. So maybe sometimes my resting heart rate is coming down when my spine gets aligned just right, so I don't have as much pressure on the brainstem, maybe. I don't know. But the blood pressure was still 155 over 94. I'd love to know more about that, but you obviously can't go to a hospital because unless you get all drugged up, they basically won't work with you. So it's like, either either be a druggie or we will not help you. So no chance there. And then I ate some weird stuff yesterday. I wonder if this is related or not. I'm not sure. I have no idea. And I ate some beef jerky that also had some beef liver in it, but then it had a bunch of seasonings, including like celery seasoning and stuff like this, which a lot of times they use celery and really healthy stuff because it has nitrates. So when you're curing stuff, you need nitrates, but a lot of people don't like nitrates being added, so they use celery, which is higher level of nitrates than just using nitrates. And then I ate some other beef sticks, which had some more flavor in them, and even had a little bit of sugar. So I'm not sure if my kidneys are having a hard time processing maybe all the spices or what. But I woke up with some kidney pain this morning, so that's kind of interesting. I think it has to be associated with that. And then I was talking with people. I have Facebook groups, these teaching groups specifically for this one company, Dada ABC. And I posted in there all this stuff I've been going through with, getting eliminated from the work thing and whatnot. And obviously I put up these things in the background, which their screen is more cut off, right? So it's smaller. So you see like half of this map and like most of this Harry Potter poster and then that painting behind my head. And that's it. And I'm like, like there, you got a map, you got a poster. They won't reply to any of my stuff at this point and whatnot. And some people in that group, everyone's like, "Oh man, that's like messed up situation." And some people, well, I one girl friended me, and she has had major issues too with them. So her thought was that they might be overstaffed on teachers, and so they're trying to eliminate some. But mine is different because all my ratings are really high on everything, and then but maybe I guess, and they said that well maybe I should just sign up for more contract hours, but there's screwy stuff with the contract hours, so I don't like them. So it's kind of like this hard-handed thing to try to get me to do contract hours, maybe really sketchy stuff. But in general, and this is kind of weird, dealing with Chinese people is sketchy. And I've been thinking about this because I've been working with a lot of Chinese people for like 18 months now, and they lie a lot, like a lot, all the time, basically. You can never tell if they're telling the truth or not, basically. And been thinking about why that is. And I think it just comes down to their political situation, right? In China, like if you aren't able to lie basically all the time, because if you start speaking the truth, the government will imprison or kill you. Right? Like Tiananmen Square is illegal to talk about. You go to school and be like, oh yeah, Tiananmen Square in Beijing, like in 1989, they had a huge riot there, and then the government rolled in tanks and killed a bunch of people. Uh, what do you think about that? Bam, that's like prison for the rest of your life, slash maybe you end up getting executed before then. So and then there's a bunch of other bad stuff about China, and they're obviously consolidating power, which is interesting and bad. Our political situation is bad in the United States too, but it's not as bad as Russia or China. It's just decently bad. So it depends on what you compare it to. But in that type of situation, like your survival depends on lying and lying basically constantly. And so you get good at lying or you die, right? The people that weren't good at lying, they died and then they didn't have kids. And that's actually one of the really major benefits, I believe, of limiting the number of children that someone can have is you can wipe out an entire family pretty easy right? There's what, maybe 2, 3 generations alive. Well, if you can have one kid, which now the official rule is 2 kids, um, but if you can have one kid, right? If you have grandparents that are alive, if all of the grandparents are alive, right, which it doesn't happen all the time, then you just have 4 people there, and then you have the parents, which are 2, and the kid, which is 1. Well, so if you kill 7 people, bam, you kill the entire extended family. Like, it's, you can wipe out the whole thing, which I think is the major benefit of to a government, to put some sort of limit on the amount of population that you can have. Anyways, just interesting observations. This girl I was talking to on here about all these issues and trying to resolve them with this company, which people offered a bunch of advice, but a bunch of stuff I already tried. So really, no one has anything. Basically, just, hey, company's mistreating you. Like, that sucks. And she was saying she noticed, she brought this up, and this is why I was thinking about it recently, because I thought about this quite a while ago, or realized this essentially. And she was saying, like, they seem to lie to me a lot. Like, yeah, all the companies I've worked with out of China, everyone seems to lie a lot. Like, I mean, humans lie a lot, but Chinese people, and I believe that's why the political situation they end up lying a lot more, right? Because it's kind of like a survival necessity. And last thing, which is slightly related, I've been thinking about the archetypes I was talking about in one article I wrote not too long ago on my blog. And I was talking about the destroyer and creator archetypes, which are really cool. Destroyer, creator, really interesting, but we really focus on the destroyers. And then we focus, and then our heroes are the destroyers of the destroyers, right? Like the destroyers of chaos. They're not really the builders of anything. They don't really create anything. Harry Potter doesn't make anything, build anything, do anything that makes something about the future. I mean, as a matter of fact, they later wrote the cursed child thing, and he's like some sort of depressed middle-aged guy with a boring life that kind of sucks. But our great heroes are the ones that destroy evil, not the ones that make good. So that was kind of the point of that article, and went through a few different stories and observed that, and it was very interesting. But I think maybe a better way to phrase it is heroic man in a hostile world, right? Or a woman, but I'm using man like mankind. Uh, it's kind of a classical way of saying it, I guess, which is kind of being eliminated by the postmodernists. But heroic man in a hostile world seems to be what everyone basically realizes the world is. But that idea a lot of times doesn't seem to sell very well. So this idea of like the world is benevolent in some way, it sells really well, but it's truly not. You encounter benevolence in a context where it doesn't benefit someone to hurt you. But if you encounter a context where whenever it benefits someone to hurt you, they do. So humans are very hostile in that way. They're pro-social when it works out well for them, or when it works out better for them. And then that can be, right, like it's extremely complex. Basically everything we ever say is simplified because the human mind has to simplify things. So everything that we talk about is more complex than what we actually say, and even can say to a large extent. But I think those are our heroes, the heroic man in a hostile world, and the heroic man is the one that confronts that hostility, voluntarily, generally approaches it and confronts it. Sometimes you have the reluctant hero that doesn't want the call to adventure, but then eventually they like give in, and they say, okay, well, now I'm going to take on the system. And that's Harry Potter really just wants to go to school, learn magic, but he basically has to fight Voldemort, but then he voluntarily really takes on that mission and does it. Same thing with Frodo. Like, Frodo doesn't want to do the whole drop the ring in the mountain thing, but he would really rather just hang out in the Shire or go on some adventures on his own, but just for fun, kind of peaceful adventures, meet some elves, that type of stuff. So he's reluctant at first, but then when he finally does it, then he's committed. Then he's all for it. And I mean, you see this over and over. Hunger Games, right? To use the same type of thing. Like she doesn't want to be in that situation at all. Like her world's horrible, only because her sister's basically being called up to die. She volunteers to go in for that, which is interesting because this is a multi-part volunteering thing. And then she doesn't want to take on the entire government, but when it ends up being essentially necessary for survival and it's just a huge thing and it already has some momentum, then she really gets into it and voluntarily takes on the entire government, and then even, you know, destroys the dictator that just destroyed the previous government, which is a very interesting, nice twist, nice insight into parts of human nature and stuff there. That was really good. Uh, so that's really interesting. It's very common to have this somewhat reluctant hero in a hostile world that then, after like a threshold moment, a tipping point, then they voluntarily confront this hostility. And that is so interesting. There's stuff that's so important in there that I'm not fully realizing and I can't fully articulate yet. But I'm working on it. So super interesting. Anyways, until next time, live long, prosper.